So in this lecture, we'll be looking into keyframes in animation chapter. Intro. Let's explore CSS animations using keyframes. This will expand upon your encounter with CSS transitions and delve into the differences between them. Learning outcome: the differences between CSS transitions and CSS animations. How to configure animation subproperties and how to sequence an animation using keyframes. Animations versus transitions. Animations let you animate elements from one style configuration to another. Does this sound familiar? You wouldn't be wrong for thinking, well, what's the point in learning animations if they're basically the same as transitions? But animations greatly expand on some capabilities that transitions simply do not have. A few of the differences include: transitions were designed to animate an element from one state to another. They can loop, but they weren't designed for that. Animations, on the other hand, were designed with the purpose of explicitly enabling loops. Transitions need a trigger, such as the use of pseudo classes like hover or focus, or by adding removing a class via JavaScript. Animations, on the other hand, do not need such a trigger. Once you have your elements in place and CSS is defined, an animation will start running immediately, almost immediately, if that's what you told it to do. Transitions are not as flexible as using animations. When you define a transition, imagine you are sending that element on a journey in a straight line from point A to point B. Yes, the transition timing function can add some variation to the timing of this change, but it doesn't compare to the amount of flexibility added by the using animations. All in all, both animations and transitions have their use, so in addition to considering the above differences, you should also use your best judgment. For example, if you need to change the opacity of an element when it is active, then an animation would be overkill. But if you need to carry out something more complicated, animations will provide you with the tools that you need. Animation properties. Let's see an animation in action to see what we have been talking about. Let's look at this example in CodePen. So it's a circle, color is changing. Note how the animation is already running and how it keeps repeating itself. We will cover the keyframes rule at the bottom of our example in a bit. So for now, focus on the actual animation properties used in the example above. So here is animation duration, name, iteration count, animation direction. Direction is alternate, infinite count is infinite. And then there are some keyframes. We'll discuss about keyframes. So animation duration, 2 seconds. Animation name, change color. Animation iteration count, infinite. And animation direction is alternate. This is known as a configuration stage where we define our animation properties on the ball element, ID ball element, and it is only the first half of defining an animation. In our example, we have an animation duration of 2 seconds. This means that it will take 2 seconds for the ball element to complete one animation cycle. Define the animation name to be change color, which is essential for the keyframe section coming up next. This is just a custom name that is not a particular CSS value. We could have called it pineapples if we so wished, but for our purpose, change color suits us well. So for the readability purpose, so that other team members can understand what exactly this animation is doing, you would want to name it a suitable name. Set the animation iteration count to infinite, which means this animation will run forever. You could also set this to 1, 2, or as many iterations as you wish. So it can be finite or infinite as you choose. Set the animation direction to alternate. This property decides if our animation should any alternate direction on the completion of one cycle or reset to the start point and repeat itself. Here it means that the ball will smoothly change back to its original color instead of jumping straight back to red. So it will be jerky. If it is not alternate, it will be a jerky kind of animation. It will just suddenly change color and again go back on the same loop. Keyframes. Now it's time to tackle the second half of our animation definition by exploring the keyframes at rule. So this was the part keyframes change color from there is a background color of red and to which is a background color of green. The keyframes at rule references the change color name we defined earlier. Then we use the from and to properties to change the background color of ball element from red to green. It's important to know that keyframes use a percentage to indicate the times for an animation to take place, and that the from and to statements are actually aliases for 0% and 100% respectively. You can read from 0% as meaning at 0 seconds and to 100% as at 2 seconds according to our animation duration in our example from above. There is no hard and fast rule on whether or not you should use from to or 0%, 100%. Just pick a style and be consistent with it throughout the project. The keyframes at rule also defines one animation cycle. So if we were to change our animation iteration count from earlier to 2, then the ball would change its background color from red to green, then from green to red, and then the animation would stop. Be careful not to think of one iteration as a complete loop, but rather a single cycle from beginning to end or end to beginning when alternating the direction. So you'll get a hang of it once you start writing more keyframes, and it would be easy to follow along. Now it's time to introduce the shorthand notation for our animation properties and glimpse a little into the added flexibility of the keyframe notation. Check out the live example below, then have a look at the notation. So here's a live example. So it's growing, the circle is growing from blue, then green, then blue, in the middle it will be red. So when small it's green, when small it's red, so it's alternating through. Background color red, animation 2 seconds, change color, infinite and alternate. Keyframes change color from background color red at 50%, width is 200%, so at 50% it's also stating this width and height. Background color is blue at 50%, so it goes from red to green and moves through blue at 50%. Here we added another keyframe for when the animation duration is at 50% or 1 second. This means as well as the background color changing to an additional value, we have also specified that the ball doubles in size. Just be aware that additional keyframes are always defined in percentages. Only the 0%, 100% values may use the from to alias. Rest of them has to be percentages. And it was 100 VW, so ball was 100 px, 100 px, and in 50 it becomes 200. So it becomes 2 times the width, 2 times the height. Hopefully, this gives you a glimpse into the power of keyframes syntax provided to you when it comes to controlling the animation of an element's properties. You can add keyframes whenever you want, control whatever CSS animatable properties you want, and have the control to add some real creative flair to your website elements. Assignment: code along with this MDN article for using CSS animations. So read the keyframes reference to gain a deeper understanding of how keyframes are implemented. This is the MDN article. Now let's make some cool animations. Go to CSS exercises repository. This is on Odin project GitHub, and do the exercises in the animation folder in this order. First do the button hover, then the pop-up, and then the drop-down menu. Now let's check. What are the long and shorthand notations for CSS animation? So you know there are 4 properties now. How do you add keyframes to animation? From, to, and then anything in between. So 25%, 50%. But from is 0% and to is 100%. When would you use an animation over a transition and vice versa? So animation when you want it to load immediately and not wait for some user event or trigger from JavaScript. Additional resources, video from dev tips on CSS animations and keyframes. This is a YouTube video, so you can check this out on YouTube. With that, we come to the end of this lesson. So we'll move on to the next lesson, which is Introduction to Web Accessibility.